now for our book review. Journalist, author, producer Hamilton Wende has reported on conflict for more than 2 decades, and he drew inspiration from his time as a war correspondent to pen his latest novel, Red Air, set in Afghanistan. He joins me now live to talk about it. Very good morning to you. What inspired this? And tell us a little bit more about the story.
Red Air, which is the book. I don't know if anyone can see it. There we go. So Red Air is the title because there's so much dust. It's a military term. There's so much dust in the air that the NATO/American forces can't use their helicopters. They can't use their drones. So the Marines or soldiers have to fight on fairly equal terms with the Afghans. So it's about... I started it about 6-7 years ago. I spent some time in Afghanistan, in southern Afghanistan, with the US Marines. And it's really about 2 fathers, 2 sons, and one very long, unavoidable war. So it's about an American son who is a journalist like myself, and his father was a Marine and then joined the CIA, very much like the sort of career diplomat type State Department employee before Trump. So this was started before Donald Trump, of course, you see. And he always disrespected his father's choices. But then he goes as a journalist, so subconsciously he's kind of following his father. He goes as a journalist and he interviews an Afghan warlord who's not Taliban, deliberately not Taliban, not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda. So it's set as a kind of more of a metaphorical conflict rather than an exact commentary on the political situation. And he unwittingly reveals the location where they do the interview, which means that this Afghan warlord is arrested by the Afghan government. So his father, the Afghan warlord's father, then kidnaps the journalist's father. So you've got this kind of conflict between fathers and sons. He says, right, now you're a famous journalist, come to Afghanistan, promote our cause, and then we'll release your father. And so he then has to go into conflict. Danny, the journalist, has to go into conflict with the US Marines and re-examine his whole attitude towards the emotional reality of being a soldier. And I think that's what's really important. It's about 2 fathers, 2 sons, but it's also very much about the emotional reality of what it's like to be in a situation where you're absolutely terrified. At the same time, you've got to fight back because otherwise people are going to kill you. And that's the ancient human kind of condition that goes right back to the Iliad, you know, to Achilles and I Sing of Anger and so forth. And so that's what the novel is about. It is a political commentary, but I started writing it 7 years ago, so I knew that the politics was going to change, and they have changed dramatically.
Let me ask you quickly, because I mean, time is flying so sadly, but so, I mean, obviously, and I know the story, people are going to be learning a little bit more about Afghanistan. I mean, it's an extraordinary country, isn't it? And what's happened is just, it's devastating. I'm just really ripped apart, and it seems that it's not going to be over any time soon. And I should imagine drawing on your experience as a war correspondent must have come through.
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I learned from some of the military briefings I had from US military intelligence long time ago was how much land was an issue in Afghanistan, because one forgets that the Soviets invaded in 1979, 1980. So the land, patterns of land ownership were deeply disrupted. And not everybody is like, I support the Taliban or I support the government. There's a lot of internal warlords, or I should say isolated warlords, and that's where Azmareh Shah who's the isolated warlord. He's fighting for himself and for his land and for his memory of his people. And he's fighting against the Taliban, he's fighting against the, in this case, American forces, but ISAF, NATO forces. So I'm very worried about the future of Afghanistan, I would have to tell you that.
This year those forces leave, and that's all the time we have.
Okay.
Hamilton, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Still to come.